It was just past midnight in Seoul. Kind of night where the city felt more like a sleeping giant than a bustling capital. The rain had been falling in a delicate, almost cinematic drizzle for hours, tracing silver lines down the darkened windows of shuttered cafes and soaking the quiet streets in glistening reflections of neon. The sound was a constant whisper, a lullaby for those who had found their way home. But for one woman, this night was anything but peaceful. Witnesses later said they saw a black sedan pull up quietly to the curb near a side street in Gangnam, the door swinging open to reveal Jung So-min stepping out, her hair damp from the mist, her face pale and drawn under the street lamp's glow. She looked around quickly, as though searching for someone, her eyes darting between the shadows. Moments later, from the opposite end of the street, a tall figure in a dark coat appeared, moving fast through the rain. Even from a distance, his stride carried urgency. That figure was unmistakably Jung Hae. The moment they saw each other, there was no hesitation. He closed the gap between them in seconds. And as soon as he reached her, his arms wrapped around her like a lifeline. She clung to him with both hands, her shoulders trembling in a way that could only mean one thing: she was crying. And not a polite kind of tears that celebrities master for public appearances. These were raw, unfiltered sobs that shook her from head to toe. Didn't let go. His coat, already soaked from the rain, became her shelter. Tilted down as he whispered something against her ear, his voice low and steady, though his eyes betrayed a storm of emotions he could not mask. A freelance photographer, who had been returning from a late shoot nearby, later admitted to catching a few frames of the scene. "I froze," he said. "It didn't feel like something I should be photographing. It wasn't for the world, it was theirs. But in that moment, they looked like two people fighting against the weight of the world, holding on to each other for dear life." That restraint didn't last forever, though. One blurred, half-lit image found its way onto the internet hours later. And in the age of instant virality, it was enough to set the entire entertainment industry buzzing. The photo was grainy, but there was no mistaking the figures. The caption was simple, almost cryptic: "Seen at midnight. No acting here." Within minutes, hashtags like Hanseman and Midnight Hug began trending on Korean Twitter. Fans flooded the threads with speculation. Some insisted it was simply a scene for an upcoming drama: the lighting, the street, the timing, all too perfect. Were convinced they had witnessed the unveiling of a real-life romance that had been quietly blooming for months. One fan's comment, which racked up thousands of likes, read, "No one cries like that unless it's real. And no one holds someone like that unless they're in love." To understand why this single image ignited such a frenzy, you have to know the history between these two stars. Jung Hae and Jung So-min first met years ago on the set of a variety special. Their chemistry noticeable even in unscripted moments. Industry insiders had whispered about how well they clicked, but nothing concrete ever emerged. Then came their latest drama project, a romantic melodrama with scenes that demanded an intensity neither had quite shown before on screen. From the first table read, crew members noticed how naturally they fell into rhythm with each other. There were glances between takes, conversations in corners of the set, shared laughter that seemed to belong to an entirely private world. It was during the long night shoots, with only a skeleton crew present. Those moments became harder to dismiss as professional camaraderie. A lighting technician, speaking anonymously, said, "They always looked out for each other. If she seemed tired, bring her water before anyone asked. If he was cold, she'd quietly hand him a heat pack." It wasn't grand gestures, it was small, constant things, and yet, until that rainy midnight in Gangnam, there had never been a moment so undeniably intimate that the public could latch onto. One witness from that night recalled hearing a fragment of their exchange. "I was walking past with my umbrella," the source said, "and I heard her voice, shaky and low, saying something like, 'You can't leave me like this.'" Hear his reply, his voice was too quiet, but then she broke down even harder. And that's when he just held her tighter. "It was intense. I didn't want to intrude, so I kept walking. But it stayed with me all night." Theories sprouted like wildflowers after a storm. Some claimed she had received bad news about a family member. Others believed there had been a falling out between them. It was a reconciliation. The more romantic corners of the internet decided it was a confession, that in that very moment, The two stars had crossed the line from co-stars to something far more personal. The drama's production company refused to comment when contacted. Their silence only added fuel to the fire. Entertainment talk shows dedicated segments to dissecting the photo and the body language it captured, the tilt of his head, the way her hands clutched at the back of his coat, the angle of her body leaning fully into him as if he were the only solid thing in the world. Body language experts were invited to weigh in, most of them agreeing that this was not a staged embrace. The hours rolled into morning. The photo was on every major entertainment news site. Poured over it, zooming in, lightening the exposure, trying to see if her eyes were closed. His lips were moving in comfort. If there were tears on her face. There were even debates over the exact location. Some thought it was near a film set in Mapo. Others insisted it was outside a quiet cafe in Apgujeong. Every detail mattered, because the mystery made it irresistible. By mid-afternoon, the story had spread beyond Korea, with international fan accounts translating posts and speculating in multiple languages. Clips from past interviews resurfaced, moments where Hae's eyes lingered on her just a beat too long, or where So-min's laughter at his jokes seemed a shade more genuine than scripted banter required. In the court of public opinion, their history was being rewritten under the assumption that love had been the invisible ink on every page. What made the situation even more compelling was that neither of them had been linked publicly to anyone in recent years. For Hae, there had been rumors. Nothing substantiated, for So-min. Occasional gossip column mentioned that fizzled out as quickly as it appeared. They had kept their private lives firmly sealed away, until now. This midnight scene was the crack in the door that everyone had been waiting for. And yet, as compelling as the romance theory was, a darker, more sobering possibility began to take root in certain corners of the fandom. What if the tears weren't about love at all? What if something had happened, something serious enough to shake even a seasoned actress like So-min to her core? The way she clung to him, the visible strain in his posture, most desperate protectiveness in his hold, they hinted at more than just passion. They hinted at fear, or grief, or both. Truth, for now, remained locked between the two of them, sealed in that rain-soaked embrace. Questions wouldn't stop, and the longer they stayed unanswered, the more the speculation grew. And then came the whisper from someone who claimed to be close to the situation. A whisper that changed everything. It wasn't about them. About someone she loves, and she just found out something no one should hear alone. That whisper, once out in the world, like wildfire, more details trickled in, painting a heartbreaking picture. Earlier that evening, while still on set, Min had received a phone call from her family. The man who had raised her after her parents divorced had been rushed to the hospital with a sudden, severe illness. The diagnosis was grim. She had held herself together for the rest of the shoot, hiding the weight pressing down on her chest, smiling for the camera when she had to, even laughing when the scene demanded it. But when the night wrapped and the lights dimmed, the facade crumbled. Hae had noticed something was wrong hours before. Miles were a fraction slower. Her eyes clouded when no one was looking. He didn't press her, not in front of others, but as soon as filming ended, he followed her out. She tried to wave him off, insisting she needed to be alone. Wasn't about to let her wander the city at midnight with that look on her face. He called out her name once, twice. Or she stopped walking. That's when she turned, her eyes already brimming, and whispered words that hit him like a blow. He might not make it through the night. The embrace that followed was instinct, not thought. There was no camera, no script, no director. Just him and her. And the desperate need to keep her from falling apart in the middle of a rainy Seoul street. He told her he was there. That she wasn't alone. That whatever came next, they would face it together. She wept into his coat until her sobs became shallow breaths. When fans learned the real reason, conversation shifted overnight. Sympathy replaced suspicion. Messages of support poured in, not just for So-min and her family, but for Hae, whose quiet act of compassion had touched thousands. He didn't care who saw. One fan wrote, in that moment, what mattered to him was her. Another posted, this is what love looks like, friendship, romance. Whatever it is, it's love. Agencies released brief statements the following day. So-min's team asked for privacy for her family. agency confirmed he had been with her but described it simply as a moment of comfort between close colleagues. Neither statement addressed the rumors directly, but in a way, they didn't have to. The image of that midnight embrace had already spoken louder than any press release could. A week later, the two appeared together at a promotional event for their drama. Cameras flashed as they walked onto the stage side by side. Her smile was softer than usual. His gaze steady and calm. Hold hands, but at one point, as she adjusted her microphone, he leaned in and said something that made her laugh, a brief, genuine laugh that seemed to ease the tension in the room. Fans watching the live stream swore they saw the same warmth from that rainy night flicker across his face. Whether the moment in Gangnam was the beginning of something new between them or simply a testament to a deep, platonic bond, one thing was certain, it had revealed a side of both stars that fans rarely got to see. Stripped of the glamour and the stage lights, they were just two people caught in a storm, holding on to each other because sometimes that's the only way to survive the night. And for the thousands who had followed every update, every blurry frame, and whispered their own theories into the digital void, that was enough. Because in the end, the Midnight Shocker wasn't about scandal, or gossip, or even romance. It was about humanity, the kind that doesn't care about fame or headlines. The kind that reaches out into the darkness and says, "Here. You're not alone."